I had no idea a Zoom meeting that lasted under 5 minutes would completely change the course of my life. Rachel, this is a difficult conversation, David Langston said, his voice flat like he was reading from a script. Your role has been reevaluated, and we've decided to go in a different direction. I blinked at the screen, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. Just yesterday, I had submitted a detailed proposal to revamp our internal data management system, something that would save the company time, money, and chaos. Is this about the proposal? I asked, trying to stay calm. It was about improving efficiency. Michelle Adams from HR appeared on the screen next to David, her expression cold and rehearsed. You'll receive a severance agreement via email. Please return your company equipment within 3 business days. No one addressed my question directly. Just vague smiles and corporate phrases. And then, click. The call ended. The screen went dark, and so did 7 years of loyalty, late nights, and silent fixes to disasters I didn't cause. All gone in a 3-minute video call. They didn't fire me because I wasn't good at my job. They fired me because I saw too much and proposed something that would have exposed the truth. I barely slept that night. My mind kept replaying the call, David's detached tone, Michelle's blank face, and the sheer disrespect of it all. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised. Ethan, my husband, brought me a cup of coffee the next morning. He placed it on the desk gently, his eyes filled with both sympathy and frustration. I still can't believe they fired you, he said, shaking his head. After everything you've done for them? I looked up at him and let out a quiet sigh. Honestly, I'm not even mad anymore. Not mad, he repeated. I shook my head. I feel relieved. I've been covering for their messes for years, working around bad decisions, dodging egos. I'm exhausted, Ethan, but now I'm free. I opened the proposal I'd sent the day before, the one that had likely gotten me fired. It was a full-scale operational tracking system that would have revealed massive inefficiencies, unexplained budget spikes, and resource misallocation. With it in place, there would be no more hiding behind spreadsheets or blame games. Everything would be transparent. They weren't ready for that. But maybe someone else would be. I opened a new document and typed Monroe Systems Consulting, Business Plan. That moment of clarity felt almost surreal. For years, I had believed that staying with a secure job was the smart thing to do. But now, I realized the only true security was in betting on myself. And this time, I wasn't going to let fear decide what came next. By mid-morning, I had already outlined my service packages: customized operational consulting, workflow redesign, and real-time data tracking systems. I didn't have an office yet, just a laptop, a cell phone, and a belief that I could build something better than what I had just left behind. I wasn't interested in revenge. I wasn't going to badmouth Hawthorne Dynamics, but I was going to let people know that I was moving forward. I began drafting emails to some of the clients I'd worked closely with over the years, especially the ones who had confided their frustrations with project delays and budget issues. The message was simple and professional. I've recently launched my own consulting firm, focused on helping organizations optimize their operational efficiency with full transparency. I'd be happy to reconnect if your team is exploring new approaches. I didn't expect much, maybe a few polite replies. But within 2 hours, my inbox had started to fill. Then my phone rang. Tom Kendrick, VP at Orion Systems. Rachel? His voice was sharp, concerned. We just heard what happened. What on earth is going on over at Hawthorne? I gave him the calm version. It came down to a difference in vision. I proposed a new system, and they weren't ready for it. Tom laughed bitterly. They weren't ready for the truth, you mean? Look, we've been uneasy with their direction for months. If you're consulting now, I want a proposal. Yesterday. By the end of the day, I had 3 phone calls lined up with high-level contacts from companies Hawthorne was still technically serving. And suddenly, just like that, I wasn't out of work. I was in demand. Within 3 days, I had sent out 5 proposals, each tailored to the specific pain points I already knew these companies were struggling with. After all, I had worked with them for years. I understood their challenges better than most of their internal teams. By the end of the week, I had 2 signed contracts. The first was from Orion Systems, Tom Kendrick's company. The second came from Lumatech, a cybersecurity firm I had helped steer through a chaotic platform migration last year. Both companies had been major clients at Hawthorne Dynamics, and now they were officially working with me. It hit me late Friday evening as I looked over my calendar, now filled with kickoff meetings, project milestones, and budget outlines, all under the name Monroe Systems Consulting. I wasn't rebuilding. I was building something entirely new. That weekend, my inbox filled with messages from former colleagues. Some were shocked, others angry on my behalf. A few, like Mark Patel, a project manager I respected, were quietly curious. I don't know what happened, he wrote, but if you're taking clients, maybe soon you'll be taking talent too. It was meant as a joke, but it planted a seed. I had intended to be a solo consultant, just me and a handful of clients. But with the momentum growing and more companies reaching out, I realized I couldn't do this alone forever. That Sunday night, I sat down with Ethan in the living room and said something I never thought I'd hear myself say. I think I'm going to hire a team. He smiled, calm and confident. Took you long enough. On Monday morning, I called Mark Patel. I'm not poaching, I said right away. But if you're serious about new opportunities, I'm listening. He didn't hesitate. I've been looking for a reason to leave for months. By Wednesday, we had signed the paperwork. Mark was officially my first hire. Experienced, reliable, and like me, done with the politics and dysfunction at Hawthorne. That same week, I brought on Natalie Ruiz, a data analyst who had quietly been building automation scripts behind the scenes while her manager took credit. And just like that, Monroe Systems Consulting was a real company. A team of 3, each one of us shaped by the same frustration, being underestimated by the very people we carried on our backs. I leased a small office space in a business complex downtown, nothing flashy, but professional enough to host client calls and give us a place to grow. Ethan surprised me the day we moved in with a sleek plaque for the front door. Suite 214, Monroe Systems Consulting. We didn't have a receptionist or a coffee machine that worked properly yet, but the energy inside was electric. Meanwhile, word was getting around, quietly, but fast. On Friday, I got a message from a former colleague still at Hawthorne. One sentence. They just held an emergency meeting. 3 clients are pulling out, and they're panicking. I leaned back in my chair, letting it sink in. I hadn't called anyone at Hawthorne, hadn't gloated, hadn't said a word, but I had taken action, and now they were feeling the consequences of everything they tried to bury, and I wasn't done yet. The following Tuesday, as I was reviewing a proposal draft with Natalie, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the caller ID. Michelle Adams, HR Director, Hawthorne Dynamics. I hadn't heard from her since the day she watched me get fired over Zoom. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, an email arrived in my inbox. Subject: Quick conversation. Hi Rachel, David Langston asked me to reach out. There seems to be some client confusion, and we'd like to clarify a few things. Would you be open to a quick call? Best, Michelle. Client confusion. I forwarded the email to Mark and laughed. They're scrambling. He smirked. They're realizing you were the glue. Still, I was curious, and I wasn't afraid anymore, so I called her back. Michelle answered on the first ring. Rachel, hi. Thank you for calling. Listen, there's been some concern. A few of our clients have requested early contract termination, and, well, your name keeps coming up. I paused, then said evenly, I've made no effort to recruit Hawthorne's clients. I've simply let people know I'm available. What they choose to do is their decision. There was a long silence. Then she added carefully, David wants to know if you consider coming back in a senior role with a substantial salary increase. I almost laughed. I appreciate the offer, Michelle, I said, but I've already made my decision. I'm building something of my own now. Something that reflects the values Hawthorne chose to ignore. Another silence. Understood, she said quietly. Best of luck. But I didn't need luck. I had momentum. And by the end of that week, 2 more clients had signed on with us. The consulting contract with Hawthorne Dynamics was worth more than any paycheck I'd ever received there as an employee. And it came with one very specific clause: full implementation autonomy, no red tape, no middle management interference. The irony? They were finally paying me, at triple my old salary, to do the exact work they once fired me for proposing. And that was just the beginning. Word spread fast. Within a month of that deal, we were featured in Digital Ops Weekly, a respected industry publication. The headline read, Monroe Systems, the startup fixing the problems corporate America won't admit. Suddenly, I was being invited to speak at panels. Our website traffic tripled. Clients who had ghosted me 6 months ago were now begging for availability. I hired 2 more analysts, a project coordinator, and a full-time operations lead. We moved into a sleek new office in a high-rise overlooking downtown, complete with a reception area, client lounge, and yes, a coffee machine that actually worked. Ethan walked in on move-in day holding a bottle of champagne. Remember when you thought getting fired was the end of the world? I smiled. Turns out, it was just the beginning. Later that week, I received another message on LinkedIn, this one from Andrew Blake, CEO of Data Vista, a fast-growing software firm with a reputation for acquiring innovative upstarts. Rachel, would Monroe Systems be open to an acquisition conversation? We're highly impressed by your growth and client retention, and we believe your systems could scale globally. I stared at the message for a long moment. An acquisition? Already? I wasn't sure I was ready to sell. But the offer meant something far more valuable than money. It meant the industry had noticed. They had tried to erase me. Now they were trying to buy into me. The consulting contract with Hawthorne Dynamics was worth more than any paycheck I'd ever received there as an employee, and it came with one very specific clause: full implementation autonomy, no red tape, no middle management interference. The irony? They were finally paying me, at triple my old salary, to do the exact work they once fired me for proposing. And that was just the beginning. Word spread fast. Within a month of that deal, we were featured in Digital Ops Weekly, a respected industry publication. The headline read, "Monroe Systems, the startup fixing the problems corporate America won't admit." Suddenly, I was being invited to speak at panels. Our website traffic tripled. Clients who had ghosted me 6 months ago were now begging for availability. I hired 2 more analysts, a project coordinator, and a full-time operations lead. We moved into a sleek new office in a high-rise overlooking downtown, complete with a reception area, client lounge, and yes, a coffee machine that actually worked. Ethan walked in on move-in day holding a bottle of champagne. "Remember when you thought getting fired was the end of the world?" I smiled. Turns out, it was just the beginning. Later that week, I received another message on LinkedIn, this one from Andrew Blake, CEO of Data Vista, a fast-growing software firm with a reputation for acquiring innovative upstarts. Rachel, would Monroe Systems be open to an acquisition conversation? We're highly impressed by your growth and client retention, and we believe your systems could scale globally. I stared at the message for a long moment. An acquisition? Already? I wasn't sure I was ready to sell. But the offer meant something far more valuable than money. It meant the industry had noticed. They had tried to erase me. Now they were trying to buy into me. The message from Andrew Blake sat unread in my inbox for a day. Then 2. By the 3rd day, Mark popped his head into my office. "So," he said casually, "are we about to become millionaires?" I laughed, but I didn't answer right away. Of course, a part of me was flattered. The numbers Andrew hinted at were generous. Really generous. For a company that didn't exist 6 months ago, it was validation at the highest level. But I didn't build Monroe Systems just to cash out. I built it because I believed in a different way of doing things. In transparency, in accountability, and in treating people like people, not replaceable cogs. I sat down that evening with Ethan at the kitchen table, just like I had the night I got fired. "I got an offer," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "To sell?" "Yeah." He waited, then asked gently, "Do you want to?" I thought about everything. The early mornings, the nights Mark Natalie and I stayed late, ordering bad takeout and building something real. The clients who called me directly, not because I was the cheapest, but because I was trustworthy. No, I said. I don't. I opened my laptop and typed out my reply to Andrew Blake. Hi, Andrew. Thank you for the kind words. I'm flattered by your interest. At this time, Monroe Systems isn't looking to be acquired. We're focused on building a company that values people as much as performance. I hope you'll understand. Warmly, Rachel Monroe. I hit send without hesitation. That moment, not the first contract, not the new office, not even the press coverage, felt like the real success. Because this time, I wasn't just reacting to what life threw at me. I was choosing the future I wanted. Exactly 1 year after that Zoom call, the one that ended my career at Hawthorne Dynamics, I stood on stage as the keynote speaker at the National Operations Leadership Conference in Chicago. There were over 400 people in the audience: analysts, executives, founders, and students. I could see several familiar faces from past clients. And in the front row, I spotted Janet Summers, the Hawthorne board member who had championed my return, sitting next to two of my former co-workers who now worked for me. I took a deep breath. When I started Monroe Systems Consulting, I said into the microphone, I didn't do it to compete with anyone. I did it because I was tired of watching good work get buried under bad leadership. There was a murmur of quiet agreement in the room. I was fired for proposing a system that made things transparent, not because it wouldn't work, but because it would. I didn't fit the culture, they told me. I paused, letting that land. They were right. I didn't fit a culture of fear, silence, and spin. So I built a different one. Applause broke out, steady and growing. After the session, dozens of attendees approached me, not just for business cards, but for stories of their own. Quiet revolts, corporate betrayals, dreams on pause. One woman, no older than 30, said, "Your story gave me the push I needed to finally leave my toxic team." That meant more than any contract I'd signed. Later that evening, as I sat in my hotel room answering emails, I got one last message from David Langston. Rachel, I saw your name on the conference program. I watched the live stream. I wanted to say, you were right. About the system. About everything. I've started consulting now, too. And I think I finally understand what leadership really looks like. Good luck. Not that you need it. David, I read it twice. Then closed my laptop. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because that chapter was closed. And the one I was writing now was entirely my own.